Hi, this is Ron Ovitt, Mr. Change Agent, and I'm so glad that you could be here today with us. You know, this is part of a series that we have of little vignettes, you might say, on the Change Blueprint. I invite you to go to our webinar where we go in more depth and you can learn about these things. There's a lot to learn here, but I want to kind of teach you some of it today where you can kind of learn some of this. And what we're going to be talking about today, there's 9 elements to our Change Blueprint. And the reason I have so many is that when we're trying to change a habit or a craving, it comes to us with everything it has. I mean, it comes to us with people, places, things, and ingrown, habits have been there a long time and all kinds of multiple triggers. And yet, many times we treat it just like a one-trick pony, right? And so we think that we're going to go ahead and change everything just by working on one specific trick. And it's not going to happen that way. Change is hard. Change is hard, and we need to be able to come at it with a lot of things. You know, if we were in a war, right, you wouldn't go against 1,000 men with 2 people. Now, that might work in the movies, but in reality, it doesn't. And likewise, when we come here and we have all these issues that we need to face, we need a multiple kind of plan. Now, you can read about these in a lot of different books. Some of these are my own, others, that are out there as common knowledge, but I put them all together into this blueprint. And the one we're going to talk about today is the habit formula. Now, this one's pretty popular out there, and I'm going to use different words because you may have heard it explained different ways, but it's very important. And what I teach here is the fact that we have a formula and you can change the different elements. That's what's important. You have heard of many of these things, but maybe you didn't know that you could change different things and get different results. And so, for example, the one that you may have heard a lot is that typical behavioral. I first learned this years ago in, what do I want to say, 1980, or actually earlier than that, when I was in undergrad school. In graduate school, we study it more. But in behavioral psychology, right, there was the stimulus. And then you had the response, right? And the stimulus and the response and the reward. And these are the things that you may have heard about, right? And so, and then that makes some sense. Now, some of the language that we use for the others is that there may be a cue, or it may be a trigger. This is pretty common when we deal with addictions. We talk about triggers. Some of the common one out there now is cue. And so whether it's a stimulus, a cue, a trigger, it's something that stops us, right? Well, then we have the response, but we also can call that reward, you might say. I mean, the behavior. You have a cue and you have a behavior. And when you look at a trigger, what you have is the habit or the addiction. Right? What are you doing? What is it that you're doing? The behavior. So you have a response, a behavior, habit. Any one of these words is fine with me that you can use, but I want you to get the sense. The other is the reward. When you have a cue, a behavior, things are done. You get the resolution, right? Things are finished, right? They've completed the process. There's a resolution. Here, in addictions, a lot of times, there's 2 things maybe going on. You could be escaping. You're escaping something. We use a saying a lot that we medicate to regulate our emotions. Something's happening in our body and we want to get out of it, right? We want to escape, and we can use all kinds of things. That's why a lot of times when a person gives up one form of addiction, they'll take another. We can be an adrenaline junkie. It doesn't always have to be substance, right? And we can start, person's not uncommon, stops using heroin, starts smoking cigarettes. And so a lot of times, we haven't quite won the war of escaping because we think it's just a certain behavior. A lot of times it's escaping, or we're into the excitement. We want that endorphin rush, right? Our own inward opiates. You'd be surprised how many of us are addicted to our own opiates that we do in our brain. Fear, anxiety, all these things can become habits. And so we have excitement. And what we really need to be looking for here is satisfaction. I grew up in that rock and roll era, right? And Rolling Stones with that, I can't get no satisfaction. And the fact is, what we really want to be is satisfied. And then that's a whole other video. But anyways, you can see all this. So we're looking at a stimulus, cue, trigger, and it has a response and reward. Let's look at these things. Now here's the key. The key is that we can change one or more of these elements. If we take the cue or the stimulus, the trigger, right? A lot of times we can change that. What is it that's triggering? We can extinguish that. For example, in OCD behavior, right? What we know now is that we have to reattribute that to something else. We have to rename it. Instead of saying, hey, I have to move that, thing, move it over, we have to be able to say to ourselves, this is faulty wiring. This is faulty wiring. That's what it really is, right? When you have an addiction, I have to have it, I have to have it. That dopamine's pumping and saying you have to have it, but really it's faulty wiring. It doesn't have to happen. And so we want to extinguish it. We want to ignore it. We want to reinterpret it. And when we do that, then when we know it's faulty wiring, for example, in OCD, then you can what? Ignore it. You can ignore it. And that behavior there is to ride the wave, right? You can ride the wave. And so you can ignore it and let that sensation, we know that sensation only lasts so long and then it will go away. And it goes away. You can substitute. And sometimes what you can do for the behavior cue is substitute. And so, for example, when I have a craving when I was giving up sugar, I would substitute sometimes a little sugarless candy. And that would be enough for me to get me through those first critical times. When I gave up caffeine, I was able to take some nutritional products. They had a patch, and I was able to do this nutritional patch that gave me energy, that gave me the things that I needed to make it through the day, to give up a 50, 60-year-old, 50-year habit of 12 pops a day or whatever, sodas a day. And so I was able to kick caffeine that way by substituting a little bit. And then you can take the reward, and that is where we get into desires. You need to go for a desire. What is it that you're really desiring? Go for satisfaction. Change it to something that satisfies instead of something that just excites. We'll get into this more as you get into our webinars, because this is important stuff. And there's hope today. You need to hear this. There's hope for you today. I believe that with all my heart. And if we can take some of this stuff, right? If we can take this habit of forming, I can teach you how to manage this, manage your environment. When we take all these things together in this change blueprint, you are going to be amazed. And as we take the time it takes to learn these things, you'll be a different person. Where are you going to be a year from now? You're going to be somewhere. You're going to be doing something. Why not living a life without those habits, without those addictions? You can, and I invite you to partner with us. Be part of this program. Come with us. Look at the different things that we have. Go to empowerforliving.com and find the different tools that we have. Write me. I'll be happy to talk with you and share with you. This is Ron Ovitt, Mr. Change Agent, and I look forward to seeing you some more.